right? Shall we?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. This is welcome to our February professional development meetings for chapter, Grand Rapids chapter. Today we have an interesting topic. You will know it, in a short minute. The topic name is Velvet Covered Steel, Mastering Resilience Against All Odds. So every one of us are familiar with odds. So I'm sure this topic will be very interesting. So we have a great speaker, than the Michelle S. Steffes. He's a published thought leader and influential speaker on empowerment and cognitive transformation, featured in national media, publications, radio, and networks globally. Her #1 release is the Reframe and Rewire, Greatness Through Daily Routine, was written from over 25 years of leadership, over 10,000 hours of study in the science of habits and human achievement. Over the past decade, she has created an expanding global enterprise, empowering leaders and teams from the inside out through interactive, virtual, and live platforms. Michelle is the CEO and the founder of IPV Consulting and IPV Group Leadership Mastery Course, founder of the 5-in-5 Performance Coaching Accelerated Growth Program, certified speaker, virtual corporate trainer, and certified executive coach, host of a global daily podcast, Reframe and Rewire, certified trainer of everything DISC, D-I-S-C, maybe there must be a full form for it. Today, yes. Michelle will share with us information that will transform your perception on what it takes to regain control and perform at your optimum potential. Please welcome Michelle Steffes. And Michelle, it's yours now.
Thank you so much, Sridhar, and I appreciate that wonderful introduction. It's a joy to be with all of you tonight. And my big question is, are you ready to get empowered from the inside out? Because that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to cover a lot of information. So one of the things that I always encourage everyone to do is to take notes. It's kind of an obvious one, right? But did you know that handwriting, and I'm not talking about typing, texting, but handwriting turns on both right and left centers of the brain and helps you to retain information longer. Now that's a fact. You can look it up yourself. But also encourage you to open your chat. I love interaction, engagement. So do open up your chat bar. There is going to be interaction opportunities throughout the presentation. And have your phone ready for an engaging activity using a QR code or website. I'll give you an option of both, but keep in mind, if you don't have a QR app, that's fine. Just use your photo app and that'll get you there just as easy. All right, so there's going to be 4 parts to today in terms of rewiring your brain for resilience. We're going to talk about inner sabotage, the enemy of your potential, addressing the fear factor, retraining your brain and managing your state, and then methods for communicating under pressure, which we're going to give you 5 of them today. All right, so let's begin with the inner sabotage, the enemy of your potential. Who doesn't have a little bit of that going on, right? I was mentioning earlier to Sridhar that this has been I'd say number 1 to number 2 topic in the last 2 years in my speaking engagements and workshops. And so this is a hot one. So what causes a lack of resilience? Well, a lack of resilience occurs when thoughts and reactions develop into patterns and mindsets that we are either not willing or able to let go of. Okay, so we don't just wake up one day and suddenly we're not resilient. This happens over a course of time as we build these. We actually create neural networks at 400 billion actions per second. Now, I'm going to be showing you actually the inside of your brain later on. You're going to see a video of how you create these neural networks and how you can change it and literally rewire it. So hang with me. So talking about rewiring the brain for resilience, it requires a change in lifestyle. Let's take a diet, for example. Let's say you want to lose 10 pounds in 10 weeks. Well, you go ahead and change your lifestyle so that you can lose those 10 pounds. And then you get to the end of the 10 weeks and you celebrate because you've lost those 10 pounds. Well, then you get to go back to normal life. You say, phew, boy, am I glad that's over. Now I can just live normally again. That doesn't work. And anybody that's ever been on a diet knows full well that does not work. So we have to change our lifestyles. Resilience is the same way. Whatever we don't continue to maintain, we will lose. So it requires a shift in perceptions. We need to rewire that brain and actually alter your state. And we're going to talk a lot about your state today, which is your state of mind, and dive into some physiology to help you understand how all of that works and how you have full control over how it will act for you. So your potential lies in your ability to be resilient. The higher your resilience, the better your potential. Why is that? Well, we're in inhibited potential or low resilience. We're flying off the handle. We're reacting to everything. We're offended at everything. Nobody can get near us. They feel like they're walking on eggshells. We never know we're going to blow up at somebody. We're upset. We're anxious all the time. We're losing sleep at night. You get the list, right? I don't need to rehearse the whole thing with you. And so then obviously we're going to see doors shut. We're going to see relationships crumble. We're going to see opportunities fade away. And we're going to just continue in this cycle of malfunction and low resilience. Whereas when our potential is high, we're just letting things roll off of us. We're staying stable and in control. People are walking up to us and saying, how do you hold it all together? Where everyone's coming to us for advice. They're encouraged by our positivity and our ability to move forward. And that's when the doors open and we see new opportunities on the horizon. We see promotion and many other things, including solid relationships. So this is the goal, right? This is where the money is, if you will. So what is the number one reason we struggle? Now, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and open up your chat if you haven't yet and share what you think the number one reason is. And I'm going to tell you right off, as you're starting to write now, that whatever answer you put in there is going to be correct. But there is one specific answer I am looking for. So we'll see who gets it. Go ahead and put in the chat what you think the number one reason is we struggle. And I'm watching the chat. Still don't see anything come through yet. Somebody's got an idea there. I see 50 participants. Oh, here we go. We don't ask for help. Yes, doubt, procrastination. Thank you. Opening up about our thoughts, self-doubt, closed-minded. Yes, attitude, fear of failure, lack of motivation. We're afraid of failure. These are all wonderful answers, but I do not see the one I'm looking for yet. I guess I see part of it. Fear to persevere. I'll take that one. So fear to persevere. Fear is the answer. And that's the answer we're looking for. So we'll go ahead and award the prize to that one. Congratulations. Fear is the root of all of these. So even though they're all correct, yep, doubts, other outlets, all of these are true, they're all rooted in fear. Okay, so fear is connected to, fear of illness, societal chaos, finances, job security, failure, all these types of things that you've listed, and you've all done a great job. So let's talk about stress and fear. Let's figure out what's really going on behind the curtain. Okay. Now everybody's probably heard of the fight or flight response, and it releases adrenaline and cortisol. If you've heard of it before and you want to do a hand raise or just put in the chat, yes, I've heard of it. That's great. You can do that and continue to be engaged with me so I can see who's on course in the same mind length as I am. Yep, I see some yeses. Yep, yes, I've heard of it. Yep, Sean, Blake. Okay, great. Some more yeses. Fantastic. Well, what a lot of people don't know is that cortisol actually paralyzes the frontal cortex of the brain, which is the executive center. That's 40% of your brain capacity. That's that blue part you're seeing there. Now, there's a reason for that. It's for when we're actually in life-threatening situations. We're in some kind of danger. Let's use this example. Let's say a mom, she gets in a car wreck. And she comes to and realizes what has happened, climbs out of the wreckage quickly, but then realizes her child is trapped. So she goes back to the car and she, without even thinking, she grabs the car, picks it up with one hand and pulls the child out with the other. EMS gets there and they say, how on earth did you do that? And she says, I don't know. I just needed to get my child out. Well, it was the adrenaline that gave her the superpower or the strength to lift up the car, and the cortisol paralyzed the frontal cortex of her brain so that she wouldn't reason herself out of doing it. And it's great on the battlefield. It's great when you're in situations like that, but it's horrible on a day-to-day. In fact, that's called chronic stress or high stress. And that will continue to raise the cortisol and continue to bathe your brain with this cortisol, and that is going to continue the paralyzation progress. But also you're going to notice reduced attention. These are some of the symptoms you'll notice if you have high cortisol. So reduced attention, people are talking, it's going right over your head, or a lower depth of perception where you might have to read something 5 or 6 times and you still don't even know what you just read. Emotional distress. So now your emotions are all over the board and you can't seem to get control of it. Poor health is obvious, right? We have digestional issues. Maybe we have a lot of headaches. We may have some joint issues where there's pain in our joints, and a number of other health issues that accompany that stress. And that's going to begin to affect our performance. So whether we're talking about physical performance or we're talking about our ability to think clearly, it's going to be affected by this cortisol. And then finally, sleeplessness, because it's a known fact that clinically the cortisol will suppress melatonin, which is what we use to go to sleep at night and stay asleep. So if we continue then to stay in this stress, you'll have cellular changes that occur in the brain. So now it's going to shrink the hippocampus, which is the memory center of the brain. So now you're forgetting things that you didn't forget before, and you're starting to notice that you're having more and more forgetfulness. And then the amygdala hijack, which is located at the back of the brain, it's almond shaped, and that is in charge of your emotions. And so now when that begins to be affected at the cellular level, now you're having those emotional upswings and down, and you can't seem to control it. You just feel like you're on this roller coaster ride all the time. So I love brain scans. I look at a lot of them, and I think that they're very helpful in kind of showing us what's happening inside. So let's take a look at the right-hand side. You're looking at a healthy, resilient brain versus an anxious, depressed brain. So the depressed brain has a lot of darkness, and especially that frontal cortex region, as you can see there. And then the healthy, resilient side is lit up very well. And what you're looking at the left side is the neural networks. And you'll have actually 100 billion neurons in your brain. And those neurons you see there in those pictures are the little gray blobs. And the neural networks are stemming out from those neurons as growths. And we're going to show you again this a little bit later in some better video and pictures, so you'll get a better idea what it looks like. But you can see that the resilient side has maintained all of its connections very well. It's very well lit up. The stress side has lost a lot of connections from the constant bathing of stress hormones. And at the very bottom, those are actual photographs that were taken of a neural pathway. Okay, so you can see again, the resilient side is very healthy, a lot of new connections. And on the other side, you can see that it's emaciated and looking very unhealthy. Okay, so now we want to move into addressing the fear factor. Did you know that you have 60 different neurochemicals going through your body and your brain, really, like the adrenaline, cortisol, and melatonin that we just talked about earlier, but you have many, many others. Now, these are going to be released at every receptor site. And now you have 1,000 trillion synaptic connections, okay? And at these synaptic connections is where the receptors are located. So this is where the two neurons form a neural network or a neural pathway that connects to another one that ends up in between that connection. There's those receptor sites, and they're releasing these neurochemicals with every thought and every action you have. Okay, so you're looking in the bottom right corner, there's a picture of kind of a neurochemical. Now, some examples of very positive neurochemicals are dopamine, and we may have heard of some of these. I tried to pick some you might be familiar with, but dopamine is the feel-good neurochemical. It's the one that it's also called the reward chemical. Okay, so this is the one that if you pass a report, or you get an A on a project, or somebody compliments you, or maybe you did really great in a sporting event of some kind, you get this surge of dopamine. We also get it on our cell phones when we get the blings and the dings and people are liking our posts and things like that. And it can actually be very addictive. In fact, dopamine is at the core of a lot of addictions. Serotonin regulates mood and reduces anxiety. In fact, serotonin is the one neurochemical that typically people are low in when they're diagnosed clinically depressed. Okay. And so then when you're given an antidepressant, it's actually designed to help you artificially produce that serotonin. But I'm going to get into some great concepts here that maybe you haven't thought of before that you could use to your advantage to create more of these positive neurochemicals. And then finally, GABA, which creates stability and well-being. So the more of these we can release, the better we're going to feel, the more resilient we're going to become. So a few ways to release positive neurochemicals are gratitude. Just having a gratitude list. There's a lot of gratitude journals out there right now. If you just write down 5 or 10 things you're grateful for every day and really think about them, can make a huge impact. Kindness, just paying it forward any chance you get. Empathy, showing sympathy towards other rather than judgment. Smiling automatically releases dopamine. Even if, interestingly, in the studies they've done, they've even found that a fake smile can produce dopamine. Laughter is another great way to produce it. Encouraging others is going to release these positive neurochemicals. We were designed to encourage, to lift others up, not to tear them down. And when we demonstrate that, we always feel good about ourselves. We always feel like the world is a better place and we've done our contribution. So whether it's encouraging somebody in your family or somebody that you really care about, or a perfect stranger, creating progress in your life. So making sure that you have a routine and habits set up that are going to help you feel like you're moving forward all the time. So this requires some pre-thought. Okay. And one of the things that I like to do is at the beginning of the week, I plan out my whole week and decide what projects I need to finish and when I'm going to finish them. And I continually move towards that project and progress in creating the finished versions of those as much as possible. But I also have a very solid routine full of great habits like exercise and meditation and making sure that I'm spending time reading and listening to things that are empowering me and encouraging me. So I always feel like I'm moving up rather than down. And then creating winning. So anytime that you can create a win for yourself in whatever state or form, that's going to help produce those positive neurochemicals. So we need to create more inner awareness and be more cognizant of what's going on inside of us all the time and begin to reframe and choose to release positive neurochemicals. So some sources of negativity that affect your resilience and in fact release the stress neurochemicals are things like the media news. What are you listening to? What are you watching 24/7? What's filling your heart and mind? And notice that when it does, it actually kind of stays there and you keep rehearsing it again and again. What kind of entertainment? What's your focus on day and night? What kind of inner sabotage? In other words, how are you talking to yourself in your inner dialogue? What sort of influences are in your life? Who's in your circle? What kinds of things are they talking about and saying to you? Is it picking you up, making you feel like you're having those positive neurochemicals released? Or is it tearing you down and making you feel worse about your life or about the world around you? And what kind of fears do you entertain day and night and day and night? Because fear is detrimental, as we've just learned, in terms of turning this around and changing it. So ask yourself, what are the benefits of staying in these negative areas? Is it a good use of your time? I mean, honestly, think about it. Is it really a good use of your time? And what kind of effects is it having on you personally? Start to pay attention to that. So when you're entertaining yourself with the media, the news, the video games, the text messages, the social media, whatever your focuses are, your influences, your self-sabotage, your fears, how is it affecting you? How are you feeling when you walk away from it? So as I've mentioned before, each thought and each action creates these neurochemicals, and we're in charge. So where will you spend your energy? I mean, each of us only have so much energy every day to spend, and you can spend it in a lot of different ways. So you're going to spend it on things you can't control, things like adversity and societal chaos. We'd like to think we could control it, but honestly, we can't. I mean, we can maybe make a little splash here and there, and that's okay. But if we're constantly working on it day and night, thinking that it's our whole world and letting it crush us, then it's not going to help us, right? The feelings or opinions of others. I got news for you. As much as you post on social media, you know what? You're stupid. Get it right. Stop posting this kind of stuff. You don't know what you're talking about. They're not going to just suddenly post, oh, you know what? You're right. I'll correct it. That isn't going to happen. That's just not realistic. So deciding that you can control the thoughts or feelings or opinions of others is not going to get you anywhere, right? It's a waste of your energy. Choices, actions of others. We cannot control that. So what can we control? Well, the good news is there's more you can than you can't. So your response to adversity maybe can't control the adversity, but you can certainly control your response to it, your schedule and your efforts. Okay. So now you might say, well, you don't know my schedule, Michelle. There's no way I can control it. People are always loading me down with stuff. Have you ever heard of the word no? A lot of people struggle with saying no because they're afraid they're going to offend or hurt someone, or they might get caught up in social media too much, or maybe in, watching too much TV or too many video games, or maybe just getting caught up in things that are not productive, not making them feel like they're winning or making progress. So learning how to scale back on some of those things and just saying to somebody politely, "No, I'm sorry, I really can't do that, but maybe I can find somebody who can." Or, "Have you tried this?" Okay. Your attitude, your behavior is something that you obviously can control every second, every minute of the day. No one can make you mad. We've heard it said before, "You made me mad." Well, that's not tangibly or physically possible. You can't make somebody mad. They choose to be mad. Now, you can incite anger by what you do to them, or maybe by an offense that you cause them. You can do something that's damaging to them, but they still choose to be angry. And nothing makes your enemies more upset than watching you sitting there with a smirk on your face, not even letting it bother you at all. Okay, that's the best way to get your enemies back. And then your choices and your actions, obviously, you can control. So decide where your energy is going to go, because the more you spend it on the things you can control, the more energy you have left to be productive and stay resilient. All right. So this is kind of how it looks on the outside, the exterior. So something bad happens to you. Someone offends you, hurts you, does something damaging. And in days, it becomes a mood. Why? Because you're thinking about it, right? You're laying awake at night thinking about it. And then people go, "Are you all right?" And then in months, it becomes a temperament. And people are like, "Boy, you've been in this funk for a while. Maybe you should get some help. Is there anything I can do?" And then in years, it becomes a personality trait. And people are like, "Yeah, they're always mad. They're just ignore them," or a hothead. They like to blow up at people. Just steer around them. Or they might say, "Oh, they're just a crab." Ignore them. They're just going to find something wrong no matter what you do. They're going to find something wrong with you. They're going to constantly complain and bicker. Just stay away from them. And we don't want that, right? That's not what we want. But essentially, that's what we're building. All right. So let's talk about retraining or rewiring your brain. What does it take? And how does it manage your state when your state is the physiology or those neurochemicals we talked about? So this is a good way to look at it. Okay. And then the top chart and the bottom chart. So let's start with the bottom chart. So you're looking at the black line is the state of mind and the red is the emotions. Now, this black line is going to determine where your emotional state is at any given moment. And unfortunately, about 85 to 90% of the population is existing in this bottom square. Okay. So you're in a situation where your state of mind is all over the board. I'm mad, I'm offended, I'm angry, that hurt. I wish that wouldn't have happened. This is not fair. Why is it always happening to me? And we pick up on this victim mentality that sends us all over the board. And then our emotions end up extending beyond that and reacting to it. Whereas when we have a very calm state, or we teach ourselves to have a calm state, then we're going to be able to keep those emotions in check. And they're only going to rise and fall just a little bit before we catch it and reel it back in. All right. So if you're looking at these two here, it's really the same problems, but one person managing it a different way. So here we are at the inside of your brain. We're going to take a look at a video here in a minute. But on the right-hand side, I want to draw your attention to this picture, because what you're looking at is a couple of neurons in the forefront and the 100 billion neurons I mentioned earlier in the background. And again, the 400 billion actions per second of electric energy. Have you ever seen a picture of a brain where it's just kind of flashing everywhere like lightning? Giving you 1,000 trillion synaptic connections by the age of 35. And we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. Okay. And the good news is the neural pruning. We're going to get to that in a second, but I want you to see that picture first. So take a look at the video now. You have unlimited possibilities. And what you're looking at is the actual connection of a neural pathway to a neural pathway. And as it continues to connect, it's going to create networks. Now, this might be new skills you've learned from baby to today. So learning how to walk, talk, drive a car, handwrite, study, your job, your relationships, the culture you live in, everything is influencing you. Even tragedies in your life are creating networks. So whether the networks are positive or negative doesn't make any difference. You're going to grow those networks. And I see Clark has a raised hand. I'll get back to you in a minute, Clark. So you are creating the person that you are tomorrow, today. Okay, so you're looking at the network now. And what I want you to understand is that you have a network for driving, and it puts you in autopilot. So if you didn't have a network for every function of your life and every area of your life, even how you handle crises, then you'd have to rewire it all over again every time you get up in the morning. So you need all these networks to function on a day-to-day. But here's the cool part. You can rewire that through neural pruning. That's the new thoughts you see forming on the screen right now in the video. You literally can unthink things. Now, how does that work? Well, basically, when you stop thinking a thought, the electrical energy stops flowing through it. It would be like if I cut off the circulation in my wrist, my hand would die, right? So it's the same thing with this. As you stop thinking old thoughts and begin thinking new thoughts, you unwire the old ones and wire in the new ones, because your neuron can only hold so many connections. Okay. So a good example for me would be like algebra. That ship sailed for me over 30 years ago. I couldn't do an algebra problem now if it meant to save my life. And that's how it is. We're constantly wiring, unwiring, wiring, unwiring. But the thing is if you start to get intentional about what you want in and keep out what you don't want, that's called neural pruning. And it's literally transforming your brain, called neuroplasticity. And I'm going to tell you a story on that in just a minute. Clark, what was your question? I don't know if you want to put it in the chat.
No, sorry, I didn't have a question. I'm just trying to keep up with you.
Oh, okay.
Must have hit my mistake. Sorry.
Good news on this, Clark, because I will be sending a copy of this PowerPoint.
Oh, good.
It's going to be in a PDF form. So you will be able to you will be able to see all this all over again. And I believe it's being recorded as well. So you'll get a copy that way.
Oh, thank you.
You betcha. All right. So let's talk about the power to change. And this is an NBC feature back in 2014. Little Cameron Mott, she lived in North Carolina, only 3 years old. Okay. And little Cameron Mott was having 10 seizures a day. So she'd be playing on the floor, and then all of a sudden her whole body would slam to the floor very hard. Her head would hit the floor to the point that she had to get fitted out in a helmet to prevent any fractures in her skull or any kind of damage. And this just gave her absolutely no quality of life. All right. So poor little Cameron was really having a hard time. So her mom and dad ended up taking her in. She had multiple tests done. She had all sorts of experimental things done, and they tried everything they could to help her. But they got to a point where they said, look, we've done everything we can, and there's nothing further we can do except one thing. She was diagnosed with Rasmussen's syndrome, which was basically where one side of her brain, an entire hemisphere, was misfiring. It was actually deteriorating in a lot of ways. Okay. If you want to look up Rasmussen's later, you can, but it's a horrible syndrome. So they had to make a life-threatening decision. The doctors wanted to take out one entire side of her brain. Now, this was possible. She could lose her life. She could have a terrible stroke and end up paralyzed, or worse. Okay. She could just end up with all sorts of mental disorders where she wouldn't be able to function on a day-to-day. So the parents had a really hard time making this decision, but they did have to come to the conclusion that since it was the only way forward, they were going to take that chance. So little Cameron at the age of 6 had a hemispherectomy. Okay. Now you can just imagine, she did do well in the surgery, and she came out better than they thought. In fact, the surgery ended up shorter than they expected. And so what they did was they set up a lot of great experts that would help her in therapy following. So she had 4 weeks of intense therapy, and they made no promises about how she would come out of it. Now, remember, an entire half of her brain is gone. But because when you're 0 to 7, you're far more neuroplastic than later in life, you can wire things in much, much faster. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not neuroplastic the rest of your life. You are. You remain neuroplastic all the way into your 80s, 90s. Okay. And they've proven that again and again from the testing they've done. But you're most neuroplastic from 0 to 7, and even through your youth up to age 35 when you've created those 1,000 trillion synaptic connections. Okay. So I hope you're following me with this, because this is really important to understand. So interestingly, after only 4 weeks, little Cameron actually walked out of the hospital. Now, could she walk perfectly? No. Did she still need therapy? Absolutely, with her speech and everything. But now today, Cameron is in her teens. She runs, plays, speaks. She's excelling in school, wants to be a ballerina. Now, you can't pull back a bow and put a cute little smile on your face like that if you're paralyzed in any way, shape, or form, right? So you wouldn't know the difference between her and any other child today because she was able to rewire her brain. That's how powerful neuroplasticity is. So what happened is all of her functions went to one side. Hebb's law says neurons that fire together, wire together. So if you're following me so far, say yes in the chat and feel free to put any questions in the chat for later, or if you want to text me, I can answer private questions after the presentation. So I see a lot of yeses. Good. Yep. Yep. Yes. 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 Super interesting. Awesome. Thanks, Olivia. Yes. 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 Okay. I see a lot of yeses. Good. I don't see any no's. So that's good. All right. Terrific. All right. I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but it was really important to get that through before we go to the next part of this. So thank you for that. Well, what if we could change how we handle our emotions and our state of mind, how we see ourselves or how others see us? Would it open new doors of opportunity or heal relationships? If you think it would, put yes in the chat. Would it change things? Would it heal relationships? Would it open new doors? I see a lot of yeses. Good. More yeses. How we handle our emotions, our state. Absolutely. Yes. And that's the key, my friends. Thank you. So I mentioned before, you have 60,000 thoughts per day. Pinpoint inhibiting thought patterns that come up again and again. So that's the first step to this. Start to think about what just keeps coming up again and again. Is it I'm stupid? Is it I'm not good enough? Is it I can't do this, or this is too hard, or I'm just, I'm just not capable, or I'm too poor, or I'm too broke, or whatever. I mean, those thought patterns that just come up over and over and over. Okay. Or I don't have enough time. And consider a 3-day thought journal. Just take 3 days and write down every thought that comes to you. And then go back and look at it and start highlighting the patterns you see. You'll start to see what neural networks you actually need to begin working on. And then set up a plan of action as to how you're going to reverse all of those. Okay. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do is look into books and podcasts and audiobooks that will help you change those patterns by constantly bathing your brain with the right information instead of the wrong information. And the more you do, the more you're going to see a progress. In fact, usually by about the 3rd week of bathing your brain in the right thought patterns and filling it with the right things. And that means your inner dialogue as well. Start to change your inner, when you start to say, I'm stupid, go, nope, okay, stop that. Don't talk to myself that way. I am not stupid. I can do this. I mean, it sounds really silly, that to talk to yourself that way, but believe me, it works. You will believe what you say about yourself more than what anyone else says about you. Think about how the sabotage internally right now is affecting you. And if you can reverse that and make it positive instead of negative, if you can visualize best case scenarios instead of always visualizing the worst case scenarios, just think about that for a minute. You're more powerful than you think you are. Okay. So just for fun, let's do a word bubble activity. Share one inhibiting thought pattern that comes up again and again. Now, the trick to this is as you put these in, I'm going to give you a chance to do this. So get ready. We're going to have you scan a QR code or go to a quick website in just a second. So get your phones ready. But put in just 1 or 2 words. Try not to make it a book, just 1 or 2 words, 3 at the very most. And if you see somebody else put something in that matches you, then put the same exact thing in and you'll watch that particular word part grow. Okay. So here we go. Scan the QR code or join us at slido.com. The number is 681-315. Again, scan the QR code. Join us at slido.com, 681-315. Share one inhibiting thought pattern that comes up again and again and again. So somebody go ahead and get us started. And if that's something that matches you, you can just repeat what they said, or you can come up with your own. Oopsie, someone put the number in. Okay, then lonely. There we go. Okay, so whoever put that number in, try again. Just go back out and come back in, and you can try the word instead of the number. So lonely, that's correct. That's definitely a thought pattern that could come up again and again. Fear, yes, fear, always fear. That one will probably grow really big if somebody repeats it. All right, fear. Oh, yep, there it goes. Somebody repeated it. Awesome. Keep going. We'll give you a few more seconds to do this and to weigh in. All right, wealth, not enough time, incompetence. Yeah, that's a big one. Anxiety. I usually see a lack of confidence come up too, which is like incompetence. Laziness, stress, mental block. Yes. Doubt. Oh, yes. Insecurity. Yeah, that's a big one too. Absolutely. Not good enough. Yep, there's somebody better. Absolutely. These are great. You guys are doing a good job here. Doubt is getting huge. Fear, anxiety, they're all really big. Not enough time, insecurity, stress. Okay, we'll give you about 2 more seconds here if you want to weigh in. Mental block, self-doubt, lonely. Okay, so we've got a pretty good idea where everybody's head is. And I'm telling you, this is not unfamiliar to me. I see this a lot. So here again, encouraging you to start to set up a plan of action to end the anxiety, to start to reframe and rewire your brain to eliminate those anxious thoughts by getting away from things that make you anxious. Become aware of what is making you anxious. In fact, look at your thought journal and say, okay, what did I do yesterday that made those thoughts do that? Was I on the news too much? Was I talking to the wrong people? Was I thinking the wrong thoughts? Begin to assess yourself and make changes in your life and in your day-to-day habits. And that's what it takes. Consistent daily habits. If you only do this for a couple of days and you go, oh, that didn't work, you're never going to get results in 2 days. You didn't get in this situation overnight. You're not going to turn it around overnight. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to grow a new neural network. I'll say that again. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to grow a new neural network. That's why they say you can change a habit in 3 to 4 weeks. So you've got to be in this for the long haul. And then just like I mentioned with a diet earlier, you can't just quit at the end of it and go, okay, goody, I'm good now. I'm not as anxious. You have to keep going. Change of lifestyle. Right? Great job, everybody. So in the garden of your mind, are you tending to weeds or seeds? Are you rehearsing the problem over and over and over again, or the episode or the offense or the hurt? Are you just rehearsing it in your mind again and again and again? Well, what do you think that's doing to your neural networks? Does anybody know what that would be doing to your neural networks? I'm just curious if anybody comes up with the answer on that. What happens when you rehearse it again and again and again? What happens to your neural networks? Programming.
It rewires again.
Yeah, yes. The wires get stronger and stronger and bigger and bigger. You're building a monster. Thank you, Sridhar. That's awesome. Yes, absolutely. And I like that it becomes the new normal. Yes, Olivia, you are correct. So all good answers. Unforgiveness. Now, let me just talk about this for a second. Okay. Unforgiveness. You know, I understand that people have been through some awful things, some unforgivable things, if you will. Okay. If I can use that phrase. But here's the thing. It's hurting you more than them. Because do you honestly think the offender's laying awake at night thinking about how they hurt you? Think about that for a second. It's like pouring a glass of poison for the person that hurt you and then drinking it yourself, because you're the one that's not sleeping at night. You're the one that's wrecking your health. You're the one that is frustrated and anxious and upset all the time, day and night. You're the one that's suffering, not them. So you're not going to forgive. If you forgive, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself. Okay. To relieve yourself, to set yourself free. Now, is it an event or a journey? It's a journey. It may take weeks, months, even years for some people. Okay. But it's a journey you should definitely take, because it's going to change your life and set you free. It's like you were chained or shackled to that person or persons that hurt you, and now you're going to be unchained. Okay. So it's really important to realize how unforgiveness can damage you horribly. Victim mentality. You can be a victim or a victor. You cannot be both at the same time. So choose. Is it always going to be, oh, it'll never happen to me. Yeah, if something's going to go wrong, it's going to be in my court. It's unfair. I never get what I want. Or are you going to rise above it and figure out how to conquer it? I love the quote by Frank Sinatra: the best revenge is brilliant success. So if somebody hurt you or offended you or made you feel like a victim, rise above it. Okay. Offense is another one of those. Same advice there. Comparing and inadequacy. I mean, these are things we choose to do. Nobody forces us to think these patterns. These are the patterns you're deciding on. If you're comparing yourself to others, that's silly, because you have gifts and talents that I don't have. And I have some you don't have. And that's just the way it is. No one's a lesser than or more than another person. So stop comparing. No vision, no goals. So having no clear direction as to where you want to head and how you're going to get there. That's very discouraging. It'll never make you give you that sense of progress we mentioned earlier. And it'll never make you feel like you're winning. Or do you feel stuck? Think about it. Yeah, I love the quote by Jim Rohn. He says, "You're not a tree, move." You don't have to be stuck. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you've been through. You're capable of turning all of this around. You have neural networks. I have neural networks. It's a decision. Okay. So brush the dust off. Let's sow some seeds here. All right. Let's forgive. Let's forgive not only others, but forgive ourselves. Because sometimes we're mad at ourselves and we're beating ourselves up all the time for things we can't change. Remember the slide where I talked about what you can change versus you can't. Decide what you can and can't change, and then move forward, right? Take responsibility 100% for your own future, your own destiny. Ignore the critics. Now, I love this. I heard this many, many years ago from another speaker, and it always kind of stayed with me. When it comes to the critics, you've got 25% of the people in your circle that love you. They'll love you to your dying day. You can do nothing wrong. 25% who like you, but they could be persuaded not to. 25% are neutral. Yeah, they're a nice person. And 25% hate your stinking guts, and there's nothing you can do about it. I know that sounds abrupt and kind of mean, but unfortunately, haters are going to hate, as they say, right? They might hate you because of the color shirt you wore today, or maybe they hate you because of how you style your hair, how you walk, or maybe where you live. And people will come up with whatever reason that they want to hate. And most of the time, it makes no sense. So stop worrying about it. Move on. Rise above it. Seek daily growth. Okay. The more you seek daily growth and accomplish it, the more you're going to get that winning feeling and release more of those positive neural networks and continue the progress. But you have to be intentional about it. It's not just going to happen. No one's just going to hand you your future or who you want to become, the person that you want to see on a silver platter and say, here you go. You have to earn it. You have to work for it day after day. And remember, those neural networks, it takes a whole month just to get one built. Get yourself a coach or mentor. You need some help. You need some eyes on the outside, somebody to help you, walk alongside of you. There's plenty of people out there that would help out, be glad to help. Okay, so we saw this screen earlier, remember? If you're meditating on fear, bad experiences, feelings, then in days it's a mood, months a temperament, years a personality trait. Well, what if we change that? We decide to meditate on what we love in life, on the good things, on the blessings. Remember that gratitude list I mentioned, or that gratitude journal? Or meditate on successes. What have I done right? What can I celebrate about myself today and what I've accomplished? And I'm not talking about egotistical junk. I'm talking about realism in terms of how you treat yourself. You treat everybody else nice, but why do you treat yourself so horrible? Celebrate the successfulness that you've had and the abilities that you have. Okay, so then this is what happens. In a few days, it becomes a mood and people are like, wow, you're in a good mood today. What's up? Oh, did you have a good night last night? Just a little joke there, obviously. In months, it becomes a temperament. Okay, so now people are like, wow, you've really been doing awesome lately. I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. I love this. And then in years, it becomes a personality trait. People are like, oh yeah, they're a ray of sunshine. They walk in the room and they just make everybody feel great. I just love being around them. I can't wait to invite them to the next party. Or somebody might say, yeah, they're just a people builder. They're always building people up. Such a great leader, always making people feel like they have value and worth. And people don't forget that stuff. Okay, they just don't. You know, I love a quote. One of my favorite quotes is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's really powerful to think about it from that perspective. So I want a quick reminder here. Remember this picture we saw earlier. Will you work on rewiring your brain daily? Because that's what it's going to take. In fact, that little dendrite that you're seeing there that I circled, that's the beginning of a new thought. And hopefully it's a good thought, not a bad one, because the bad ones, remember, they grow just like the good ones do. They both grow at 400 billion actions per second with those electrical impulses. But a new dendrite, which is everything you're learning today, if you've not heard it before, you've just created some new dendrites. Congratulations. You're the proud owner of several new baby dendrites. What are you going to do with it? Because a dendrite will denature or turn into hot air within only 48 hours. That's why when you go to a class or a seminar, if you don't act on it, it just disappears and you don't remember any of it. That's why I like it when people take notes, handwriting for that retention, creating a plan of action, becoming more intentional about your future, daily growth, continuing to realize that every thought, every action, everything you expose yourself to is creating your destiny, creating your future. Be intentional about what you want to grow and about what you don't want to grow. Now, here we are on the last part of this, 5 methods for communicating under pressure. Now, taking all the knowledge that you have so far, let's go ahead and walk through this. First of all, listen to learn. Okay, a lot of people don't. A lot of people listen, but they're not really listening. They're thinking about what they want to say next. I learned this many, many years ago in my early years of leadership. You got to listen all the way through, because chances are if you answer too quick, you'll miss out on the cues that would have changed your answer entirely and altered that conversation. And ask yourself, is this really intended as an attack, or is this person just really upset right now and just needs someone to hear them out? You know, maybe they're really hurting. Hurt people. That's the truth. Maybe it's a customer that has a reason to be upset because in some way, shape, or form, they're disappointed in the service or the product they've received. And you need to listen all the way through before you respond. Okay. Maybe you're in a relationship and you've hurt them and you need to hear them out before you decide what the proper answer is. Sometimes just hearing them out can end the whole argument. Is this a legitimate request? Is it a test? Maybe they're just trying to find out what you're made of. See if you really are the person you say you are. Right? See how tough you are. You don't know what people are doing, but if we don't listen, truly listen all the way through, we'll never find out what they really meant. And that's what turns into a lot of bad relationships and a lot of miscommunication, especially in a work environment. So number 2, altering physiology. Now we've talked about physiology, so you know what that is now. That's basically the chemicals we were discussing earlier. So altering your physiology, you can do it a few ways. Here's some hacks for you. So if you're in a heated situation, some kind of conflict, it's hard, it's frustrating, you can clench and release invisible muscles, okay? Like your thighs, fists, toes, and buttocks. Now that may sound really silly, but it actually does work. Test after test has proven that when you squeeze those muscles and release, squeeze and release, it actually drops cortisol. And it also increases oxytocin and improves cognitive response. Pretty cool, huh? You can also take some deep breaths. All right. So you can breathe in 4 seconds, hold at the top, breathe out 4 seconds, hold at the bottom 4 seconds. And you just keep going 4, 4, 4, breathing in, hold 4, breathe out 4. And you keep doing that. That's actually first responders are taught that, because if they don't do that, then the cortisol actually pummels the frontal cortex of their brain and they can't think straight. That's why mistakes are made. When it comes to first responders, they don't know how to de-stress. They don't know how to bring the cortisol down so they can think straight. Remember, we talked about the reactivity of adrenaline and cortisol, right? So we have to learn how to bring that down, okay? So we can answer responsibly. 3, stall, okay? So repeat it back to them. So it's not only going to help them realize you're actually listening to them, and that may in itself calm them down, but it's also going to help you to understand more what they're saying and give them an opportunity to say, no, that isn't what I said. Let me correct you. Okay, sure. Go ahead. Correct me. Ask them to break it down. That's another thing you can do, especially if you don't know what to say yet. So, okay, I understood what you said here, but could you break that other part down? I want to make sure I fully understand what you're saying to me. Okay. This is very methodical listening, and it's very powerful in any tense situation. Ask for clarification. Okay. We just mentioned that one. Or have silence, the thinking face. So you just kind of sit there with your fingers kind of looking up in the air like you're thinking. Just don't do it too long. They'll think there's something wrong with you. And don't do all of these at once. You want to pick 1 or 2, right? But stalling is very effective, and doing some of these things can help diffuse the conversation. Okay. 4, prep and rehearse. Anytime you know in advance you're going into a tough situation, maybe a job interview, an exam, maybe you struggle with exams. So you've got to learn how to de-stress. Think ahead. Definitely study for the exam. But also when it comes to predicting and solving, if you're going into, say an employee-employer situation, or maybe you're a leader on the line today and you're struggling with a certain employee and you have to confront them about something, think ahead about all the things that could go wrong. The more that you're prepared, the better. In fact, you can brainstorm potential powder kegs, either with yourself or another person in the room. Okay. You can also demonstrate in front of a mirror to make sure that your face lines up with what you're saying, because sometimes we're saying the right words, but we don't notify our face. And that's a bad thing to do. Okay. You got to notify your face. Answer the whys ahead of time. Think ahead. What are they going to ask me? And what kind of whys might come up in the conversation, so that you know how to present yourself well. There's nothing worse than sitting there going, well, I don't know. Well, I don't know, right? We have to know in advance as much as we can. And if we don't be afraid to say, look, I don't know, but I'm happy to find out for you, and I'll come back to you and we'll talk about it again, or I'll get the answer back to you, or I'll send somebody your way. Those are all important, right? And then rehearse how you'll present. And we were just talking about that in terms of your face, but even your vocal tones and your hand movements, your gestures, all can show or reflect the truth about what's really happening inside of you. And it can either diffuse the situation or heighten it. Okay. Finally, 5, know when to stop. Be discerning when it's getting out of control. Know when to stop. Refuse to get caught up in it. So decide before you even go into it, you're not going to get caught up in this. You're not going to let that cortisol grip the frontal cortex of your brain and throw you into a tailspin, right? Or get help or walk away. Okay. So these are things that I think are really important for all of us to practice consistently. Life will produce what you create, accept, and pursue. There's my book, Reframe and Rewire. I also have a workbook, and I've written 2 other books that'll be released this year. One's a child's book, and another one, or actually it's a teen's book, and another one is a leadership book. So when we work to change our perceptions, it changes us physiologically, neurologically, socially, and intellectually, which changes how others see us, ultimately changing our culture. It all begins with you. Okay. So join me on my daily podcast, Reframe and Rewire. I'm on multiple platforms globally: Spotify, Apple, Google, Podbean, Castbox, so many others. I mean, just pick one, right? And there's a picture of the countries I'm in. And then finally, I'm ready for some questions here, but I want to encourage you to visit my website. You can email me if you have a question you'd rather answer privately. You can visit and check out some of the other offerings that I have. I do a lot of leadership training, a ton of leadership training. Also, I am a certified DISC trainer, and I also do a lot of coaching. So it's been a joy being with all of you today. I hope you pulled something away from this. I would encourage you to walk away with at least 2 or 3 takeaways that you can write down and begin to create a plan of action. And I'm open for questions.
Hi. What is a book that you read throughout like your 20s or your 30s, or even now, that you feel like really formed sort of your success and how you became so determined to do what you do?
Oh my goodness, what a great question.
Thank you.
Oh my. Well, I've read many, many, many books. I'm a big audiobook devourer. I will devour anywhere from 50 to 60 audiobooks in a year. And so I guess if you're asking me to pick one book besides mine, I like Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That has a lot of the sciences that I just shared with you. And and I say that was really impacted me in a big way.
Okay, thank you so much.
You betcha. Anyone else?
Michelle, I have a question. Like many times we start with that with a good intention, but over a period of time it wears out. So how to keep us motivated and committed to that?
That's an excellent question, Sridhar, and I appreciate you asking that. Well, what it takes is habits. So think about it this way. If I was to ask you to do a job, Sridhar, for me, I would have to train you and then equip you. I would have to get behind you 100%. And then I would have to make sure that you had every resource and every connection you needed in order to succeed at the job, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so life is the same way. We can't just fly by the seat of our pants every single day. We have to be more intentional about the habits we've created. We have to be very brutally honest about which habits are pushing us forward and what's pushing us behind. Now, the hard part is forming those habits, because it's so easy to quit, especially if you don't have someone holding us accountable, like a boss that's just asked an employee to do a job, right? So we have to find ways to help get the accountability piece in, but literally set up a plan of action that's going to help us to stick to what we're saying we're going to do. One way is to form triggers. So here's one tip I can offer you. A trigger is where you set up a specific habit or action that is tied to another part of your life. So for example, if you want to exercise every day, you put your workout clothes where you're going to see them. That's a trigger. Okay. So as soon as you get up in the morning, bam, there they are in your face. That's going to force you to work out. Or perhaps you want to walk more. So you have the dog leash right next to your tennis shoes so that you're going to walk when you get home from work with the dog. One more example. So say, for example, you want to do more gratitude affirmations. So you get one of those mirror crayons, or you just get little note cards and you post gratitude all over your mirror. So every day, the first thing you do when you look in the mirror is start to speak the gratitude. So these are all habits and triggers that can help you.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the tips.
You bet. Anyone else? Questions? I hope it all made sense to you. I know I covered a lot in a short amount of time. I mean, some of these courses that I offer will last 6-12 months. So it's hard to cram it all into a 45-minute, 50-minute time frame. But I wanted to make sure I gave you enough to walk away and be able to actually make a difference in your life.
Certainly. Yeah.
Any other questions at all? Thoughts? Anything that you've experienced in your life that you want to share with the group?
I have one question for you.
Sure.
So I know you talked a lot about finding ways to turn your brain on and develop new habits, but how would you say for a student, one thing that I struggle with is finding a way to turn my brain off, in the sense that I'm studying or I'm doing something, I don't think it's enough, but I know that in reality it really is. If you understand what my question is, how would you say to turn the brain off in that sense?
So are we speaking about turning the brain off so you can sleep, or just turning your brain off in general?
Yeah, more like along like the sleep, I would say. Yeah,
Sleep?
because say studying wise, I spend so much time that when I'm like, okay, it's time to get some sleep, then I constantly just think about what else could I be doing right now rather than sleeping, I guess.
That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that, because a lot of people struggle with that. So you're not alone at all. So sleep is one of those things that you've got to give your body a chance to produce melatonin. Okay. We mentioned earlier, melatonin helps you sleep. So here's the thing, when it comes to, and you're learning how to hack your body is what you're doing. So when it comes to melatonin, it doesn't like bright light, because melatonin, when there's bright light, especially of a phone, a device, or something of that nature, a computer, right before, like leading right up to the bedtime, it's mimicking daylight. So now your brain thinks it's daylight, so it won't produce the melatonin. So there you lie wide awake. If you're stressed, remember the cortisol actually suppresses the melatonin. So maybe try some deep breathing as you lay in bed. I often like to play something soft in the background, or I'll just start quoting some of my favorite quotes, things like that, as I'm drifting off to sleep. So I'm shifting my mind over to kind of bringing it down a few notches in terms of the energy that I had going on inside of me and in my brain. And lastly, you go to bed at the same time every night, and you get up at the same time. If you're all over the board, your body never knows when you want to produce melatonin. It's just so confused. It has no idea. So I hope that helps you.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
You bet. So the name of the podcast, Blake, is Reframe and Rewire. Good questions, all of you. You bet. So any other questions or anything you want to share in your life that's worked for you? Everybody's so quiet.
You said
Oh,
that
yes.
you were, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
You said that you did disc training. So I've had to do disc training and tests for previous jobs, and they've kind of studied my answers and tried to relate it to other people. What exactly did you do with disc, and how do you integrate that in your consulting?
That's another good question. Well, I'm certified to teach the leadership, and I do actually incorporate that in some of my leadership mastery course. But I also incorporate it in half-day or 2-hour trainings with teams. And the cool thing about DISC is when I got certified, they said, look, you can use as much or as little as you want in your program, kind of in grafting them together. So depending on the need of the organization, because I tend to customize all my materials, I'll put in a little bit or I'll put in a lot of disc, or I'll build from the disc base that they give you on the facilitation materials, and I'll put in some of my materials to add to it and give it more flavor. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just kind of
Okay.
wondering like how you
Yeah.
use that on your day-to-day. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate what is the disc? Sorry for my ignorance.
Oh, okay. Disc. I don't really know what DISC stands for, except they're each one of those letters accounts for a personality type. Okay. So when you're looking at the word disc, it doesn't really mean anything like a company other than that's their logo. But the D is like the dominant side of you, and the I is the influential side of you, and all of us have a mixture of these. So you might have more D and I, so you might be a D, like a big D with a little I, or you might be an S, which is more of the social. But then the C is the collie type, maybe soft-hearted. And so what we do is we take these DISC exams or tests, and then we blend that into many different styles of training to help people to work better, more effectively, to understand each other better, and to even understand ourselves better. So in short term, that's the quickest way I can define it for you.
Thank you. Okay.
So all good questions. I appreciate all of you so much. You had great questions. You're great participants. It's been a joy being with all of you. I hope you'll fill out the survey and reach out to me if you have any other questions or need anything from me.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. And it was an excellent topic. I think we all got our tips. Really, it's worth practicing it, and definitely everybody wants to put a step forward in a good direction. So thank you once again. And as already Michelle pointed out, please fill up the survey for Michelle. So it will help us to bring in great speakers like Michelle in the future again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yeah, enjoy the Super Bowl week.
Ah, yes.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.